It has been a simply extraordinary week in the United States with terrorist bombings, what appears to have been a deadly industrial accident and a major defeat for gun control advocates in the US Senate. Almost unnoticed in the middle of all that, an historic breakthrough on immigration reform and the continued threat of war on the Korean Peninsula. Joining us now, Dr. Adam Lockyer, lecturer in US politics and foreign policy at the United States Studies Centre at the University of Sydney. Adam Lockyer, welcome back to Planet America.
Good evening.
Can we talk a little bit about the Boston bombing? Obviously still lots and lots of questions to be answered, but the very fact that there was almost a laundry list of possible suspects, domestic, international, lone wolf, Al-Qaeda, all these sorts of things, that in itself says something.
Yes, so we just don't know who it was at this stage. We don't know about the motivation, and it could have been anybody. It could have been international, it could have been domestic. As time moves on, it's starting to look more and more as though it was probably domestic, but we really just don't know. And this type of thing is incredibly difficult to defend, to prepare for, because it could have been just about anybody.
And the fact that Richard Clarke there talking about the fact that he is personally, as a former counter-terrorism chief for the White House, he is surprised this hasn't happened before. It's when these events attack something like a marathon or a fun runner, you just realise how vulnerable we are in a free society.
Oh, that's right. And you see that the perpetrators this time are on the run. So unlike in if there's an international attack where they often want to take credit for it, they want to promote their political message, often they're using suicide bombers, and the suicide bombers make a martyr video, and that's released at the same time as the attacks. This is one of these older style events where the perpetrators immediately go on the run, and this is somewhat dangerous too, because if they're on the run, that means they want to do it again.
And we losing perspective when it comes to terrorism. I referred earlier to all the terrorist attacks in the 60s and 70s, and I referred to the 1920s as well. Let me just read you off a rap sheet here. 1919, a wave of 36 anarchist bombs sent in the mail. 1920, bomb in Wall Street killed 38. 21, white people dropping dynamite from planes onto a black ghetto, killing up to 300. 27, a school bombing killing 45. Like, in context of the last 100 years of violence, are we freaking out a little bit too much about terrorism at the moment, or is it actually as much a threat as we
terrorism is designed to cause terror, and so of course we're going to be concerned about it, because that's exactly what the perpetrators want us to do. So of course it's going to make the news, and of course people are going to be scared. So although the amount of fear and anxiety that people feel is disproportionate perhaps to the hard stats, that really doesn't matter, because what matters is the amount of fear that people feel and the amount of notice they take to the political message of the perpetrators.
So it's a bit like fear of flying. The most dangerous part of your journey is the taxi ride to the airport, and yet people are there white knuckles in the plane if there's a little bit of turbulence.
Exactly.
So it's human nature. So there's not a lot we can do about that.
And it's not just human nature, it's also what the perpetrators want to do. So if we start to just take a cool head to the situation and just look hard at the facts and the stats and say that terrorism isn't really a big deal, terrorists aren't going to kill you, statistically speaking, then the terrorists are going to change tactics, and the terrorists themselves will start to do something that is going to scare you. It might be biological, it might be cyber. They're just going to find a new way to terrorise you, because that's what they're trying to do.
Is this going to... Richard Clarke sort of talked about the NRA's role in stopping the tagging of explosive devices. Is this going to overlap or coalesce with the gun debate in the United States, in that climate of fear that you talk about? Is that when people want to keep their gun by their side?
Probably not. It probably have less to do with the gun control. It might have more to do with immigration. So people are going to feel increasingly concerned about outsiders coming into America. There's going to be sort of a garrison state approach to when people feel scared, they feel vulnerable. Let's put up the barriers.
People have already tried to connect it to the immigration debate.
I think that if anything, when people get scared, they want more guns rather than less guns.
Did you share Chaz's surprise that the Senate didn't even get close to approaching a highly watered-down piece of gun control legislation?
Yeah, I mean, the background checks was the low-hanging fruit, and even that was out of reach. Yeah. So we see that if they can't get the universal background checks, this is not really new policies. This is just sort of what's already there. It's being spread out to encapsulate a few of the loopholes. This is not really groundbreaking legislation.
We should emphasise as well, this was the Senate The House is an even bigger hurdle. So this is like the first tiny little hurdle before the big hurdle. Yeah, and they still couldn't clear it.
This is a bipartisan bill going into the Senate, and it was the real battle was going to be in the House.
So was the President whistling in the dark in the Rose Garden with the victims' families there, saying this is not the end of it, we're going to keep fighting, we are going to get this done? Is it actually going to be all over?
Harry Reid has sort of signalled as well that they're going to now take a breather, but he may reintroduce legislation further down the track. This was one of Obama's big pillars. This is something that he really wanted to get done. And if the President wants to really invest more political capital into this, maybe they'll be able to move forward down the road a little bit. But for the time being, this is off the table.
Immigration, there is progress happening there. There is bipartisan consensus on all of this. Have you been surprised at the speed at which Conservatives have suddenly gotten on the immigration bandwagon?
Well, the Conservative elite, not the Conservative base. And they've got to be careful too. So Marco Rubio is being touted as a possible 2016 presidential candidate, and he knows he needs to get through the primaries before he can get to the general election. So he has to make sure that he doesn't put the Conservative base offside too much as he's pushing these things through. But we see this with the budget bill as well, with the Conservatives at the same time being in a bit of an awkward position where they know that they can't make too many concessions to the Democrats because they need to get through the primaries in the presidential election.
On that note, Marco Rubio just copped a lecture from Rush Limbaugh about sponsoring the immigration bill, so he's already copping heat.
And we were just talking about the gun law amendment. This was bipartisan and went to the Senate floor and didn't get anywhere. Just because it's bipartisan doesn't mean that it's going to get anywhere.
All right then. Well, Adam Lockyer, we always appreciate your analysis. Thank you very much for joining us once again on Planet America.
Thank you.